ever think that in the middle of an ordinary industrial estate, with trucks coming and going every day, there was a secret hiding enough to shake the entire national security system? One morning in August, when everything seemed to be going as usual, no gunshots, no chases, just a few boxes and a few signatures. But that moment opened the door to one of the biggest criminal investigations in the UK in a decade. What makes it all the more chilling is the way it happened. Without a sound, without anyone suspecting anything, everything seemed perfectly programmed. And the question is, how could a crime ring of this scale operate right under our noses without anyone noticing? What really happened behind that warehouse door? Come with me, but before we begin, guess what's the last thing you'd expect to find in a frozen cargo hold? Leave a comment below. The answer will shock you. From the outside, Maninder Dosanjh, 39, looked like an ordinary man from the West Midlands. But behind his quiet exterior, he was the mastermind behind one of the biggest cocaine smuggling networks ever dismantled in the UK. With years of experience in logistics, Dosanjh not only understood how to move goods, but also knew exactly where to tweak them to transport drugs without being detected. He did not work alone. His accomplices included people like Amandeep Rishi, 42, who helped plan and coordinate the deliveries, and Mohammed Usman, 29, who was caught transporting cash hidden in tires. Along with them were members such as Peter Masi, Mandeep Singh, Mitab Hussain, Kamran Hussain, Rizwan Ali, Saeed Hashemian, and Ashtiaq Ahmed, each with a part to play: transport, concealment, money laundering, warehouse supervision, or liaison. The gang operated mainly in Birmingham's industrial estate, where lorries carrying frozen chickens rolled in and out every day. Cocaine was hidden in pallets of food, sometimes packed inside the packages, sometimes in secret compartments under the floor of the trucks. They communicated via encrypted, an encrypted messaging platform they believed was untraceable. Each member, no matter how big or small, was part of a multi-million-pound drug smuggling operation. And for months, it all went smoothly, until a single decrypted message brought the whole network crashing down. There was no sign of a bloody power struggle, nor of any explosive internal conflict leading up to the crime. Instead, the motive was simpler and more dangerous: money. The profits from cocaine on the international market were unstoppable. In the UK, a kilogram of pure cocaine could fetch tens of thousands of pounds, but if shipped to Australia, where demand is high and supply is limited, that figure could increase 15 to 20 times. With that vision, Maninder Dosanjh and his associates did not just trade domestically. They planned to expand their smuggling network across continents. Their sophistication lay in the way they organized. Each member of the group did not need to know the whole story, just play their part. Dosanjh and Rishi handled the strategy and transactions, while people like Kamran Hussain and Rizwan Ali handled the logistics, warehousing, and transportation. Refrigerated trucks, supposedly carrying food, became the perfect way to transport contraband hundreds of miles without raising suspicion. There was no bravado, no violence, just quiet transactions, midnight departures, and brief encrypted messages using encrypted. In their eyes, this was not crime. It was a business system with scale, profit, and risk. But perhaps what they misjudged most was the level of security they believed technology would provide them forever. During the period from March to August 2020, as the UK tightened its grip on the COVID-19 pandemic, a sophisticated drug ring was operating more smoothly than ever. Coordinated by Maninder Dosanjh, the gang made multiple shipments of cocaine weighing more than a ton, a huge amount considering its purity and market value. The modus operandi was designed like a professional supply chain. Cocaine was imported from Europe, transported in refrigerated trucks disguised as fresh frozen chickens, and passed through multiple legal ports of entry into the UK. The packages were properly sealed and had clear invoices, enough to bypass most regular checkpoints. At warehouses scattered around Birmingham, chosen for its convenient transport system and low profile, the packages were received by workers who were intermediaries. Some of the shipments were distributed directly to local dealers, but a significant portion were repackaged, disguised, and prepared for export to Australia, where cocaine is worth almost 20 times more than in the UK. One notable shipment was a food container sent by sea, containing 225 kilograms of cocaine, hidden using the double-layer technique, that is, a layer of real goods on the outside, a layer of illegal goods on the inside, behind a specially reinforced partition. To coordinate such shipments accurately, the group used signal coding systems. Keywords such as Grade 1 chicken, Order number 72, Refrigerated Truck A, were all internal code words. Some members of the delivery team would ensure that the driver never knew what he was carrying. The driver would pick up the container at an intermediate point, drive it to the designated warehouse, and leave immediately after delivering the goods. No communication, no questions asked. All information was transmitted via special telephone devices, encrypted messaging only, no voice calls, no GPS. Financially, payments were never transferred directly. The group had its own system of collecting, holding, and laundering money. Some defendants, such as Mohammed Usman, were tasked with transporting cash in spare tires or hiding it in portable steel safes. These sums were then divided into smaller amounts and legalized through businesses, money changers, or transferred back to Europe. What was special was the discipline within the organization. No one was allowed to act outside the plan. If a shipment was delayed, a message was sent from above to make adjustments. If a driver was checked, the dispatcher immediately notified the next delivery points. There were deliveries that took place at 3 a.m., with schedules and locations updated minute by minute, as if the group were tracking the journey on a live map. It all happened in silence. No gunshots, no violence, no missing persons. And that made the whole operation seem perfect. But each step of the journey, each seemingly innocuous message, inadvertently left behind traces that no one in the group expected. The investigation began not with a bust or a secret confession, but with the careful observation of a team of experienced investigators. Amid the pandemic's surge in freight traffic, several refrigerated truck routes were operating at unusual frequencies and schedules. Shipments were declared as frozen chickens, but were routed through multiple intermediate points before reaching their final destination warehouses. Something that would be out of character for food products that requires strict temperature control. The authorities became suspicious when they saw some trucks making circuitous journeys through little-known industrial warehouses on the outskirts of Birmingham, Coventry, and Solihull. They set up remote camera surveillance using automatic number plate recognition, ANPR, devices to track the frequency of movements and repeat routes. Not only were there unusual signs on the route, but the timing of the vehicle's arrival, often in the middle of the night or early morning, also made investigators suspect that this was more than just a routine food delivery operation. Having identified a number of suspicious warehouses, the investigation team conducted on-site surveillance. They found close but discreet coordination between the transporters and the subjects at the warehouse. No lengthy conversations, no cash transactions on the spot, no paperwork left behind. The goods were brought into the warehouse within minutes and the vehicles left shortly thereafter. Some warehouses were inspected after the warehouse owners left. Investigators found suspicious signs. Warehouse partitions had been reinstalled, hollow floors had been welded shut, and even some food pallets had uneven weights. These small details were key to further expanding the investigation. At the same time, NCA financial experts coordinated with anti-money laundering agencies to monitor related cash flows. Some suspects' bank accounts were unusually volatile. Large sums of cash were received, quickly transferred to small businesses, or sent overseas via informal money transfer services. Some members, such as Mohammed Usman, were suspected of being money couriers and were placed on a special watch list. On one trip, Usman was found to be carrying more than 100,000 pounds in cash hidden in tires, opening the door to tracing the source of the money and the roles of individuals in the syndicate. The investigation also extended to major ports such as Felixstowe, where a food container destined for Australia was detained after scans showed an unusual cargo hold. After opening the container for inspection, police discovered more than 225 kilograms of cocaine hidden beneath layers of refrigerated goods, expertly packaged. Using import and export data, declaration records, and the company in whose name the shipment was being shipped. Investigators traced the shipment back to the original warehouse in Birmingham, which had been under surveillance for weeks. For months, investigators refused to act hastily. They chose to remain silent, to continue to monitor, collect evidence, analyze financial activity, and compare it with on-the-ground behavior. The trucks were deliberately allowed to pass because each trip was more evidence, another confirmed link in the network. Finally, when all the data matched up, from the identities of the individuals, their roles in the system, the transportation routes, the way the shipment was concealed, the exact amount of cocaine that passed through their hands, the investigation entered its final phase. A plan of action was drawn up, divided into several simultaneous attacks. But that is the story of the arrests. The raid was not a one-off operation, but a series of coordinated actions that lasted for 10 days in July 2020. After months of quietly gathering evidence, tracking lorry routes, analyzing delivery points, the UK National Crime Agency, NCA, in coordination with police units in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Walsall, Sandwell, South Staffordshire, and London, simultaneously issued arrest warrants for all key members of the network. Each subject was approached by surprise. No one had time to react or flee. Maninder Dosanjh, who was identified as the key figure running the entire operation, was arrested at his residence in the West Midlands, where he lived with his family without any suspicious signs. During the search, police seized documents, cash, and equipment related to the transportation of goods and finance. Amandeep Rishi was arrested at a warehouse in Smethwick, still operating as a food delivery business. Meanwhile, Mohammed Usman, who was supposed to be the cash courier, was stopped on the motorway with a lorry containing tens of thousands of pounds in cash hidden in the spare tire. The investigation was completed over the next 2 years, with a huge amount of evidence: logs, CCTV footage, financial records, cocaine tests from seized packages. Each of them was brought before the court to face serious charges, most of whom pleaded guilty without contest, because the evidence was so overwhelming that they could not be denied. The formal trial will take place in August 2024 at Birmingham Crown Court. The courtroom atmosphere was described by the press as dead silent, as each defendant, not violent gangsters, but gentle-looking middle-aged men, faced severe sentences after 4 years of arrest. Maninder Dosanjh received the longest sentence, 16 years and 8 months in prison for his role as the main coordinator of the entire network. Amandeep Rishi received 11 years and 2 months in prison for his direct involvement in logistics operations and transaction control. Mohammed Usman was sentenced to 9 years and 8 months in prison for his role in transporting and hiding criminal assets. The remaining defendants include Peter Masi, Mandeep Singh, Mithab Hussain, Kamran Hussain, Rizwan Ali, Ashtiaq Ahmed, and Syed Hashemian. Each received between 2 and more than 9 years in prison, depending on their roles and level of involvement. The judge said in sentencing, "You organized your drug trafficking operation with the sophistication, the methodicalness, and the cold ruthlessness of a black business. There was no violence, no fuss, and yet the consequences of those packets of cocaine were countless families torn apart." In addition to the prison sentences, many of the defendants' assets were seized: vehicles, bank accounts, property, and businesses suspected of being used for money laundering. It was seen as one of the NCA's biggest victories in the fight against organized crime, not because of the scale of the violence, but because of the sophistication of the system and the silence of the crimes. When the final verdict was announced, the courtroom doors closed, but the echoes of this case did not stop there. A ton of cocaine, not just a number on paper, but millions of doses of drugs that could have seeped into communities, into students, into the vulnerable, into the most peaceful streets. What makes people shudder is not the gunshots or the violence, but the absolute silence of the crime. No one in the neighborhood suspected anything. No one in the community knew about it. The suspects did not quarrel, did not threaten, did not live in luxury. They were just men with stable jobs, small families, and seemingly harmless smiles. But in that normality, an entire drug trafficking empire grew. operated sophisticatedly, and seemed untouchable. The question is, how many more networks like this exist around us? Without gunshots, without bloodshed, but just as dangerous? And how can we know? Should we be suspicious of things that seem too perfect? Share your thoughts below. If you think this story is worth listening to, please like, comment, and subscribe to continue following real cases with lessons that linger long after the verdict.